Blood to take out a third and get a cancel on it. All of these options are available, and I really do think it's a massive boon to play the full rounded strategy game. Let's see what he goes for in the top left. He is, of course, the hero of Australia, the most consistent StarCraft 2 pro gamer from Australia. This is Probe.
And his opponent down here in the bottom right, in the red trunks. This is RiSky.
All right, is going to allow the hatch first to go up, but Probe's still scouting here, so kind of conservative opening the old gate scout. Making sure he's not being 12 pooled. We'll be able to harass with the Probe, of course, and this is something players are all doing. I remember when it was like only the heroes of this world who bothered with the Probe harass to this level. Really just trying to occupy those patches, bounce the drones around. If the Zerg player doesn't pay attention, you'll knock the drones off that are paired up, and they'll naturally end up with stacks of 3 on some of the faraway mineral patches, and it's actually a big hit to your income. A lot of newer players, they kind of just never micro their workers to spread them out. And usually it's fine and they spread out naturally, but every now and then they will, you know, like I said, 3 to a patch, which means 16 out of 16 on a mineral line, suddenly is nowhere near full mining.
Yeah, it's interesting. That used to be like the epitome of esports right there, just harassing the mineral line. But yeah, nice to see it pop back up again. And we have ourselves a nice, calm early game in comparison to some of the other matches that we've seen tonight so far. And a lot on the line here. I mean, we have already a few players getting out. We've got Ranger coming out on top from Group B with T-Ball and Mio in there as well. So it's all Protosses and Zergs from here on out as well, with the fall of Seether there on the B stream. So I do wonder, as we head into the playoffs, if that makes the prep any easier on these guys for their playoff matches, because obviously they all play each other fairly often in these tournament circuits, and it makes it a little bit difficult to keep things fresh and away from the eyes of your opponents each time you come through. But typically when we see Probe and RiSky come up against each other, they're just relying on their fundamentals. I struggle to think of a game where something super out of character strategy-wise was chosen by one of these players.
Yeah, it's really fun because you know you get guys like NXZ, Ranger, who just go at each other's throats for the whole game, and it's like they're just trying to kill each other. It's like, you know, it really feels like Korean ladder, where it's just such an aggressive meta. And then these two, it's much more like the EU meta, where it's like, well, if I play perfectly and position perfectly, I should be able to defend this third with a single adept and 1 oracle. And we'll take a 4th at 5 minutes 10 seconds, and you know, I'll be at 80 probes by 6 minutes 30, and you're like, my lord. There's a lot of if things go perfectly in that scenario. But when both of you are doing that, it ends up being an economic arms race, right? You're trying to punish each other not by being aggressive, but by being even greedier than the other guy. And it's a completely different phase of economic growth. And the fights, when they do happen, are much bigger, much faster, because you aren't clashing with the small early game skirmishes.
Precisely, yeah. So let's see how we take shape here. Obviously, we've got the 3 bases for RiSky. Creep spread starting to head out on the map a little bit here. Of course, he likes to have a bunch of queens out. We've already got a few in the mix here, and that'll help out against these couple of oracles that are going to be slithering into the natural and main base in just a moment, looking for some kills. We do have the spores up as well, but the queen's already coming into position.
Ooh, good pull on those queens. Maybe 1 drone went down there, but at most 1. And maybe not even that. Very good positioning on these queens as well. Leaving some on the edges is going to be nice. Forces the recall on that. Probe not really finding any damage at all. Already down 8 workers. Does have 2 adepts coming in. 4 Zerglings in position though. But he commits to it. Oh, the Zerglings surround, stopping that adept getting in between the patch. RiSky's defense has been absolutely perfect so far. It's a very rough start for Probe.
Yeah, not really able to get too much done at all. And we see that RiSky is actually going for the +1 on the melee and heading into the Bane nest there. Mia, also a fan of upgraded Lings in his previous matches, so keep an eye on that and see if he can get any harassment done as the game progresses. But we're heading to lead, dropping that extra gas now as well on RiSky's side of the map.
+1 and Blink on the way for Probe. So he's going to be going for that Blink Stalker style. Now, it does feel to me like RiSky's going to drop a Hydra Den and go straight for Hydras, but very well could play like, you know, Massling Bane straight up to Ultra. It's not a bad style, especially against the Stalkers. Like, you just surround those with Masslings and absolutely ravage. But Hydras give you the advantage of shooting down the Oracles easily, right? So you get even a handful of Hydras, the Oracles suddenly can't just shuttle your Zerglings down when you go off creep.
Yeah, and I find that Probe typically is very, very good defensively as well. So when you're trying to do those run-bys, he often has quite nice Sim City. He's got a couple of cannons, maybe an Oracle. If it's not out on the map, sitting there ready to defend. It can be quite difficult to get some damage in there. So the Hydras, if they are sprinkled into the mix, can add a little extra flavor and make it a bit more difficult for Probe to hang on and keep those air units in play as well. So as you called it, Pig, there's that Hydra Den coming down.
This to me feels like I look at this as from the Protoss perspective, and I go, you've let RiSky get away with far too much. It's 7 minutes. He's at 80 workers almost. He's got double Evo. You know, Hydra Den, Bane speed's on the way. Hasn't had to build a single Roach. I worry a lot for Probe because there's no sign of Storm. There's no sign of splash damage on the way. It's just a double Forge play for him. He's got some Oracles. He's adding charge. Feels to me like RiSky's going to be maxing out on Hydra Bane against the guy that's just on Zealot Stalker. And I don't know how Probe can possibly defend his worker lines on his 3rd and 4th against an onslaught like that.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty rough. We'll see how he manages. Stasis Trap wears off on those Lings there. And retreat to hang out with their buddies. Creep spread still slowly slithering across the middle of the map there. And RiSky trying to stay on top of that watchtower and keep a bit of vision happening here. Oracle's likewise going to put some vision on that big squatterlings as well. Keep tabs on where that's going. And yeah, Probe just kind of keeping an eye on what RiSky's doing at the moment as he heads up the tech tree himself. We see the Templar Archives finishing up, and charge won't be too far off either. And that will definitely help with that collection of Lings from RiSky.
Storm on the way. Stalker Storm is actually pretty darn good defensively. It's not too good at pushing into the Hydraling Bane, but it's very good defensively if you can get enough Storms up. Problem is RiSky's already almost maxed, and the Storm has just started. The High Templar's just warped in. Probe's trying to get a 5th base. I mean, his supply looks pretty good, but a lot of that's in Zealots right now. The job for Probe is to buy time. Get more High Templar, get more splash damage. Only 3 High Templar gathering energy, though, unlike Colossus or Disruptors that, if you keep them alive, can keep firing. The High Templar takes so long to gather up those energy for those storms, so he needs to hang on for a lot longer. On the other hand, RiSky, sitting back while maxed out, has to be a little bit of a mistake. He's got to be getting across the map and denying that 5th. To let Probe take that right now, when Probe has the worst tech, definitely an opportunity that could slip by. With +2 melee and +1 range finishing, he's got to make a play.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm a little surprised to not see him taking a stab down that part of the map just yet. He is sending, I think, something up to scout around that area. So, yeah, he may soon take a swing at that base. As he's seen it now, he's parked a couple of units behind the mineral line. Those could become Banelings later if probes do start mining on that mineral line. But for now, it's a lot of posturing. RiSky coming in to sweep up these zealots that are headed down towards the bottom left, and from Probe also it could be nice to start sprinkling those in to those mineral lines when he gets the chance. Now, bit of an attempt at an attack on this base, but we do have an Archon shield batteries, cannons in the mix as well. Is he going to get into the mineral line? He is going to take out a bunch of those probes. The whole mineral line goes down.
Devastating damage there. 16 pros falling. That's what I was talking about. I don't know how you can defend this with the mostly Zealot Stalker army, especially with the creep control that RiSky's got. He now moves up to the north side. Handful of Stalker Zealots, some High Templar behind, but does he have enough cannons and batteries anchoring this position? The gateways have just started on the north. The Lings can tear this down pretty quickly. The Storms have to be big here. First Storm, very good at clearing those Zerglings, but Banelings starting to filter through. If they hit the High Templar, this could go very bad. The High Templar still alive. Probe doing a great job with his Storms, and it looks like he will defend.
Yeah, it does hold that off. Not a lot of shields left on those units, but not to worry. But more probes going down on the lower left base. And he's looking a little bruised and battered, but he does have a few units left over to send them through the middle of the map. He's going to come down to this sort of 6 o'clock base where the warp prism is at, but there's a lot of Lings and the Hydras coming in here as well. I mean, that's the end of that attack for the moment. And on the other side here as well, these units are going to have to retreat using a storm to ward off those Lings.
Probe on 10 gases, 5 bases. He's got a crazy amount of gas income. Now, that's scary for a Zerg that's not on Hive, because you look at the supply and you're like, well, this is so good for RiSky, don't get me wrong. It is. But if you don't clear the army, he's going to start adding 4 Archons, another 4 Archons. Suddenly, he's got 8 to 10 Archons, 6 to 8 High Templar with Storms, you know, a bunch of Stalkers in there. How do you defend that with Ling Bay and Hydra? You simply can't. At a certain critical mass, the Protoss army is better. Lurker Den's on the way. Hive's almost finished. RiSky needs to make that transition before Probe pushes into him.
Yeah. We see more Banes being morphed here. More and more Lings coming out as the Hive finishes up as well. And Lurkers will soon be in the mix. And Probe getting some of that defensive posture back up with a few more shield batteries and cannons at his other bases, but this base down here on the lower left still relatively undefended. This one's going to be okay with the cannons and batteries that are there, but we need some more units down here to help defend. A bunch of Archons in the mix, and oh yeah, might be cleaning a bit of that up.
Oh, the top side's going to start getting ravaged, and the army just pulls back from the south. The High Templar keep running back and forth, north-south, north-south. RiSky's movement is out of this world, and he's got creep everywhere. The High Templar aren't able to be where they need to be. Probe has got to split those High Templar up on both sides of the map. He can't just be relying on walking them back and forth. I feel like he's got them on a control group right now, and he keeps trying to move them to where they're needed, but they're too slow. You can't react with High Templar. They need to just be spread across those bases, waiting for these situations to arise. Triple Robo transition, as well as, of course, the 3-2 ground upgrades on the way for Probe. But +3 melee, +3 range, Adrenal Gland, Seismic Spines, all on the way for RiSky. And he wants to keep on hammering on in here. The Warp Prism for Probe waiting on the other side. Spines defending these Zealot run-bys. Feels like Probe just can't get any purchase in this game. Got a big Archon ball, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen some heavy hits on the mineral line of Probe, but none back on RiSky's side of the map. And even coming in here with this big, scary ball of Protoss units, he's just not able to find a good angle to go too deep on that creep territory or too close to that army. So we see him ramping up the Zealot harass now. He's having another attempt down here on the bottom side. The Warp Prism still searching for a spot to drop off some friends, but still not quite having any luck. He may need to find a choice moment when they're engaging or something to get full use of that, but it looks like he might have finally found a spot here. The Spore moves immediately to try and take out that Warp Prism. Some Lings here to meet the charge loss, but there's a fair number of Zealots.
Yeah, they do kill some Zerglings. Unfortunately, a little slow in pulling the Prism back. Oh my gosh. Oh no, that's a lot of units. Stalkers will try to slow him down, but they are absolutely going to breach and clear that mineral line. Baneling's getting a bunch more kills. Good spready from Probe. Honestly, good reaction. It could have been worse than 12 workers there. Cannons end up surviving at the front, as does the Nexus, and he was already in the 90s, so he can absorb a punch like that. He's got a very big economy. Ooh,
but the Lurkers are going to take position here. They are visible from the cannons, but that's a long line of Lurkers, and it's going to be really hard to attack into this. He's going to leapfrog a few forward and make it a little bit more difficult to close in there, but he does pick up and head back out onto the safety of Creep before he loses anything there. There are fair few immortals in that mix as well. So you have to be a little bit careful, but man, Probe is actually having a bit of a difficult time keeping this creep at bay. RiSky's creep spread has been great this game.
Yeah, this is one of the weaknesses of going, Twilight Store, Blinking after Stargate, Oracle. You just delay your robos so long. So even with the Zealot run-bys, they're all getting spotted by the creeps so far ahead of time, and the army is having to use Oracle tags earlier on to clear the creep. Now it is actually, able to do more than that. And does catch all those Lings. Nice little storm there. RiSky's still got momentum, and he's got a gigantic bank. He's going to come forward on the north again. Got to be careful. If he gets flanked, though, there's not a lot of support for these Lurkers. And yeah, he's got to pull back.
3-3 just finished for RiSky there as well. So those upgrades are going to be well and truly juicy, especially with those run-bys that he's been trying to do. The Lings will chew through everything so quickly, and double Spire just came down as well.
Those lurkers still trying to shove forward. Probe needs to pre-split. He needs to be ready to flank this army because he's trying to spread out there. Good storm! But of course, it only tickles lurkers. It does not kill them on its own. He needs a bigger mortal charge lot flank. Without that, I don't think he can fight these lurkers. Look at the range advantage. Oh, my lord.
Oh, no. There's basically no shields left on any of that.
Oh, don't go in there, Probe. Probe, you got to give that base up, buddy. There is no way you're winning this fight. The Zealot flank on the right side begs to differ. Very nice. Zealot flank comes in. The Immortals doing really well to clear these lurkers out, and a crazy hold by Probe. I thought he was done for there, but you can see what happens with the way the lurker splash goes in a line. If you come in with a flank, you start luring that splash damage off on an angle where it's not hitting. The moment you're attacking lurkers front on, it's like they're doing 10 times more damage than if you're flanking them.
Yeah, beautiful decisive move by Probe there. That was actually an obscene amount of lurkers to lose. Now, RiSky is looking ahead to some different tech now, so he can replace that supply. He's making almost 40 Banelings here to help defend against this Protoss army that's sort of coming through the middle, looking for a spot to attack. Still a little bit dicey for Probe to commit in there, and he's trying to take another base. That is going to be a cancel on that one. A little bit hard to defend that spot. But similarly, he's going to try and take out this gold on the bottom left. I don't think RiSky's going to be there in time, so another cancel goes down there.
Big late game battles. The carriers come in. The greatest bio transition feels a bit behind. There's no Infestors or Vipers out yet, so feels like RiSky's still trying to win with Hydra Bane and maybe one round of Broodlords added to that. A couple Banelings blowing up on a Stalker. Not an efficient way to take that out for the Zerg. Still a lot of storms available, but only a handful of Archons and Immortals. So Probe, he's clearing creep, he's getting map control. Oh, whoa, big surround. Beautiful move by RiSky. An opportunistic dive, accidentally storms his own army. Recalls out maybe only 2 Immortals. Oh, that was a disaster for Probe. A beautiful surround by RiSky. You could see the way he just brought all of his units in from every angle. The Hydra Bane is in crazy numbers. I don't know if there's enough here for Probe to handle this.
Going to be a little tricky. That is a lot of Archons though, Pig, and I think that might help out here. The Bane's not quite ready. There's not a whole lot of Ling support. And while the carriers aren't large in number, they can be of a bit of assistance here as he pulls back towards this base. Probe once again struggling to secure that extra Nexus up towards the top right. Warping in a bunch more Templar, getting some more Immortals in the mix as he tries to rebuild that force a little bit.
I was talking about how it's hard to get a 5th base on this map. It's actually been the 6th base, which is giving Probe trouble this time around. You know, he got the 5th up really early and defended it fantastically. I thought RiSky was ahead in the early to mid game, but Probe has managed to get us here to the late game. The problem is that he's not mining as much. So even though RiSky's throwing away big Baneling Hydra armies, and actually, I mean, he has kind of spent his bank, but he's got the Corruptor Viper that counters the carriers. Still got a good army on the ground in terms of Hydraling Bane. I don't think he has many lurkers right now, though. And I think without Broodlords on the field, he desperately needs lurkers. Otherwise, this ground army is just going to punch through.
Yeah, we're seeing Probe be able to venture out a little bit more now that he's cleared up some of that creep. RiSky is likewise staying very active on the map. He's keen to take this lower left-hand gold base as well, though. Zealot's going to come in on the top right, but Spines and Lings will make short work of that. Probably will have to sort of whittle away at the static D there if he wants to actually get into that mineral line. Zealot's taken out on the lower left side from RiSky's small collection of Lings and Banes there. Very nicely done. And now he's going to come up here and try and deny this base again. Is this a good angle for Probe? The storms are pretty good. Corruptor's taking out the carriers, though.
Oh, those carriers go down so quickly. The Archons land some big hits on the Corruptors, but it felt like a pretty good fight for RiSky, who's still got a lot more money in the bank. That being said, the 6th base does get up now for Probe. He desperately needs those minerals. Got his +2 air weapons on the way. With +3 carapace already making for RiSky. RiSky's got the better upgrades. He's adding a 10 Broodlord morph. So I think he's just saying, hey, look, I killed the carriers, swap to Broodlords, kill this base. And if he can do that, it should be a game-winning maneuver. I don't know if Probe has any counterplay to this, especially with that north area of the map. There's this big terrain on the left. If the Broodlords get over that, nothing on the ground can reach them.
Yeah, he's got to kind of attack where the Broodlords aren't, I suppose, because while Archons can shoot up, they're going to have a hard time getting underneath those Broods. There are no more air units in production. He's just going to chill on that one carrier, and he's just adding more and more Archons in the mix. Some units at the ready to defend the lower left should Probe try and multi-prong while he defends here, but this is going to be a little bit rough. He has to back right up into these cannons. And RiSky's going to take advantage, push forward, and just patiently start tearing down this base. And the army as well. He's actually going to move up into this. But
the carriers are focusing the broods down, so he's getting a few of those on the south side there. The Archon and Immortal, though, the High Templar, there's not enough Storm. If you get one Storm on the Hydras, there we go. Finally gets that one through. There's still a lot of Hydras in the back, though, and the Broodlords are just ripping this ground army apart. All the Interceptors are gone, and that looks like this is that fight RiSky was looking for. Deny the 6th base. Probe will be broke after this. You're mining behind it. The Archons actually deny the gold base. A cute move, but RiSky's still got the 6th base behind this, so he is just ahead on that momentum and that bank.
Yeah, Probe's supply has gone way down. He's still trying to get some more Archons in the mix. The carriers are doing their best, but this is still a fair amount of Zerg on his front doorstep, and it's going to be a bit tricky to clean up. Another Archon goes down there, and there is just a lot of firepower here from RiSky. The Brood's making things difficult as well. And while he doesn't have a whole lot of money to reinforce in a massive swell, this is so difficult for Probe to deal with. He's surrounded, and that is GG. RiSky will take game number 1.
Probe looking a little frustrated there, but not too emotional compared to years past, where sometimes we see him hamming it up a little bit, win or lose, and having a huge reaction. Funny to see. I mean, the lighting of RiSky there, I think, showing he's embracing his inner Protoss a little bit, using the high tier units, the tech tree. He's got the shining blue light on his face, channeling that Kala energy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's the game that we expected from these two, especially on a map like that, where it's all about the macro. Maybe not too much happened in the first 10-ish minutes of that game as they both powered up a whole bunch and sort of just poked around. But maybe we'll have a bit of a difference on the next map. I mean, it is a bit of a shorter rush distance, and yeah, I don't know. RiSky's looking pretty strong this tournament, I have to say. I might need to rethink my prediction there.
Yeah, he looked awesome. Don't forget, he did have a good start to the series, though. The map there got way up on the economy, and definitely didn't feel the need to make a single roach. Any real safety precautions. We didn't see an early Overlord speed going through for Scout. So RiSky was able to get a little bit of a lead. It might be time for Probe to punish him in game 2.
Absolutely. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, game number 2 between RiSky and Probe. Welcome back, everyone. We are in the second game of RiSky vs. Probe. If you're just joining us, it is the final match of the group stages here for Oceania and rest of Asia. A long game to kick things off there on Cosmic Sapphire Pig. Are we going to see another long one on Moondance, though?
Yeah, definitely a map where there could be a bit more aggression from either side. Last game was definitely very chilled out openings, but I think Probe, his adepts really not finding anything committing in, and that was not the greatest. The oracles not able to find any damage either, and it really felt like RiSky did a great job of delaying his spore crawlers. Like, he got such a nice economic start, and just looked great. So really well done.
Yeah, just solid play. I mean, I feel like RiSky, every time I see him, that's how I describe him. It's just like, yeah, solid macro player. Because that's really all there is to it. You know, he comes, he plays his game, he executes his plan, and you know, that got him the win there. So yeah, I mean, time will tell if Probe has something else up his sleeve to get things going, but yeah, we'll hop into the match and have a look and see what's going on. I mean, I feel like with this this Ling thing that some of the Zergs are doing, Probe just doesn't really seem to have maybe like a good answer or like a practiced answer to it. He's actually getting knocked around by it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely a tricky situation, and it's always just these minor details, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a similar match with just very slight adjustments for Probe.
Yeah, I think, you know, Probe hasn't been a multiple time champion by accident. You know, he'll figure it out, make the adjustments that he needs to come out on top here in game number 2. So we're about to hop into game, folks, and see whether or not our friend here in the top left can keep the dream alive. He is spawning in the blue, and his name is Probe.
His opponent in the bottom right with a dominating map in the previous one. I'm sure he's got a plan here, and if there was ever a map to maybe throw in a curveball, you're up a game, this would be the time to do it. In the bottom right, in the red, it's RiSky. Dual UK and Kiwi citizen. Playing from the UK though, so playing with a lot of latency over there. Does have that disadvantage, but he gets to that big macro situation and tries to set up so it's more about the positioning before the fight rather than in the fight itself, any sort of twitch reactive micro or anything like that. He did a great job of it in the last game. You know, I was like, man, he's ahead. Go use your lead. Go kill him. RiSky's like, no. I just get it set up and I trade and I just start sending Ling Bane on the bottom, Hydra's on the top, Hydra swap to the bottom, Hydra swap back to the top. The creep doesn't stop spreading. The map doesn't stop getting eaten up and taken, and he steadily transfers into lurkers, transitions from there into broodlords. It was a very clean progression for him, and one which I'm sure he's done many times before.
Yeah, I like the use of the word steady there. It's a very good description of the way that he plays, and it's no small feat actually to adjust your playstyle to compensate for ping issues. Obviously, playing in these tournaments, that's something that he's had to deal with time and time again. It has been a frustration in the past as well, but not much you can do about it. But you know, when you play, let's say on the European ladder, US ping is going to be different again. It's sort of a different adjustment to get your timings right, you know, especially if you're doing stuff like detonating Banes or trying to pull something back at the last second. It's almost a subconscious thing at that point. So it is actually quite impressive to see how well he does despite having those ping disadvantages, and often just the difference in time zone can be a bit of a pain in the backside as well.
Yeah, you know, getting up for the gamers. This is the crack of dawn over there in the UK. What is it, like midday right now or something like that? It's like, I'm telling you, I remember, like, you know, I've hosted some tournaments, like young Clem over there in France. He's like, oh, I don't know if I could be awake at that time. And I'm like, quickly Googles, it's midday France time. And he's like, yeah, I'm not awake at that. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. So you never know what schedule the players are on. I think RiSky does look pretty alert and awake, though. Sometimes you do catch the players just looking tired and yawning on that camera and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, I haven't had a chance to adjust the sleep schedule or this or that, but I think he's looking very focused so far. Goes for the third hatchery, and once again, very defensive for Probe. I do think if there was ever a map to block the hatchery, and then Chrono 2 adapts off a core before Nexus, this is it. Probe's just playing the super conservative defensive style though. And I really like that if you do that after an aggressive game. But if you just do this like Chrono Probes, Chrono Oracles, take a third, I feel like RiSky knows this is coming now, and he already showed in game 1 that he can outgreed you. So Probe needs to hit a perfect macro game with zero fear of repercussions this time around.
And I think being a little bit closer together in terms of rush distance, maybe you'll have a little bit of an easier time getting into RiSky's territory, trying to get in there with that Oracle. Tickles a few drones, but he'll be looking to swing back in with that and keep an eye on the Zerg, but also pick up any kills if he can. The second one on its way now too. RiSky's been so good with the queens though. They're always sort of preemptively in position to deal with that. He has good tabs on where they are at all times. Nice overlord spread. He's got lings out on the map usually as well, just patrolling around, making sure that he sees anything that Probe might be sending across the map at him, and certainly seen those adepts sneaking in as well.
Great queen positioning, just always ready for everything. The drones accidentally pulling off this base. Maybe no, it was a shade that got cancelled. This time around, Probe not overcommitting. RiSky also hit a bit of a supply block on 66. So workers are dead even. At this point in the last game, it was 57 workers for RiSky versus like 50 for Probe. So a real kind of, difference in the economic growth. Of course, the free third in the back helping Probe a little bit. Doesn't have to worry about defending that. And he is playing a 3-gas, single forge, Blink Stalker style. RiSky, on the other hand, playing not the latest lair, but still a late lair, just big macro style. But he's adding the Roach Horn, so we expect Ravager Bane rather than Hydra Bane this time around.
Yep, adding a bit of a beefier composition in to the light unit heavy comp from the last game. And, ooh, that is 11 Roaches and a bunch of Lings coming out here right away for RiSky.
That looks like an all-in, doesn't it? Is he just going to walk the queens, or I don't think there's a Nidus Worm. Oh, it's just, yeah, okay. Overlord speed is on the way, so I think maybe that's a little slow. Might have forgotten to upgrade that, but there we go. He's going to load queens into those dropper lords, bring those across. It's the German taxi. RiSky's been over to Home Story Cup many times. He knows about those dodgy German taxi rides. You never know how fast the guy's going to go, but it's Probe. He's the one who's got to be worried right now because this is a very scary push.
Yeah, he's cleaning up some of the creep. But does he know what's going on? It doesn't look like it, as the initial unit's going to swing down towards that 4th Nexus and make that a pretty surefire cancel. There we go. Stalker's coming out to meet him as well, and they're actually going to get swallowed up if they're not careful. That's a lot of Lings.
So much Queen Ravager coming over as well. The Stalkers don't quite see the Overlords. I don't know if Probe knows. If he knew about this, he'd just pull behind his natural wall. If he gets caught outside, he's dead. He needs to get those Stalkers inside. Oh my lord. Okay, the Stalkers see it coming. He's got to get out of there, Probe. He's got to pull back right now behind that wall in.
There we go. He blinks back behind that wall. The Overlords have dropped off all their friends here at the front, and the Queens are starting to do what they do best. Just poke. They've got transfuses ready there as well. Actually not using those too much. Ravager Bile's now coming down, focusing on that battery. Doesn't quite get that though. And Probe has managed to pick off a fair number of units on the front lines. Creep Tumor's now coming down. He's going to try and get rid of a couple of those. One does manage to finish building there though. Ling's having a hard time getting through here. Now taking out the pylon though, which cancels that warp in.
Yeah, nice cancel on the warp in. Probe's definitely going to keep those warp ins going, but it looks like a pretty clean hold here for the Aussie. And I got to say, this was not the right all-in for this map. Remember, he can only transfuse now that the creep's been dropped out of the Overlords and the creep tomb is down, but it doesn't matter. It's this map. It's easy to defend this. You've got to surprise them in the production. And that's why I think a Nidus would have been a much better version of doing this. Flood the front with Ravager Ling, but pop the Nidus in the main. There's only 2 Oracles. Yes, they could do a bit to kill your Ravagers, but I definitely think it's more important to get inside the main, because this natural choke, I mean, Probe just abandons the 4th, pulls back there, and he is in such a massive economic lead now.
Already building another cyber core behind that, knowing that he's going to lose that front one and he wants some extra space to sort of maneuver around here, so he ends up killing it himself. Chrono Wing charge going into +2 attack behind this as well, and especially once that kicks in, it's going to be really hard for RiSky to trade any good, because he's just got no upgrades to speak of. He's getting roach speed, yeah, but it's all about this aggression on the front lines. Is, you know, sub 50 drones. Ooh.
Probe's really messing up right now. Remember, they're usually playing on the Singapore server, so Probe might be dealing with some ping issues as well. Be a little inconsistent there. But yeah, he lost a lot of Stalkers and Zealots to Biles. RiSky's making the best of a terrible situation, but that is exactly what Probe needed to do. Just jump past the Biles, stop playing cat and mouse with it, and just punish him. And so many Ravagers just went down.
Yeah, and we've got a few more roaches in production there. RiSky making a few more overlords too to make way for that supply. We do have a 4th hatchery down, but we're not heavily droned up, of course, because we have so many units on the field. Meanwhile, Probe getting that 4th nexus happening again. Archon's coming into the mix, charge almost finishing, so he's really getting a nice looking army to contend with what RiSky's going to have on the field. And RiSky's got to now balance having enough to defend and maybe even pressure a little bit, but also getting that drone count back to where he needs it to be.
Yeah, I like that Probe's working on his Probe worker count as well. Like, get the 4th, but also get a 5th, I would actually say right now, because he's been pinned back on 3 bases for a long time. His main's mining out. His natural will be mining out in the next 2 minutes as well, half of it. Well, so I'd like to see him just take a 5th, go to 80, 85 probes, and you know, add some splash damage. His upgrades are so far ahead. 2-2 is going to be finishing as +1 melee starts. Like, that is not good for RiSky. He's going to need to do a heroic comeback, and you know what? Double Baneling Nest is not the beginning of that.
No, it looks like he's lost his rhythm a bit here. Not only the double Bane Nest, but he's about to hit a bit of a supply block as well. Granted, he's not really trying to produce anything at this very moment. Bit more focused on the Stalkers on the front lines here. And he's going to use the Biles to push that back a little bit, keep him off the edge of the creep there. There we go, 4 Overlords queued up as the Zealots also come in and start killing drones down at that 4th base.
Oh, good micro by Probe here. Stalker's just picking off units pretty much for free, blinking away, not a single one dies. 8 workers die to the Zealots at the same time as well. And he even tries to pull them back and focus the drones down rather than just funneling into the roaches. Great trades for Probe as he makes a triple robo transition. Triple robo immortal, something he showcased in the latter stage of that last game, and it really gave him some great anti-lurker power. Gives you a lot of meat in your front line as well. +3 attack is starting up for Probe. Didn't quite have the gas to start. +3 armor straight away. Might go into plasma shields actually if he does end up swapping to Archons, but for now, Zealot Stalker gets a massive benefit just from the ground armor upgrades.
Probe continuing to press forward here and just pick off a unit here and there. A Queen, a Ravager being a real big nuisance while the damage gets done by these Zealots over here. He repositions real quick. Not getting wigged out by the whole position there for too much longer on those drones, and you start to see the kills stack up there in the workers killed count on the left. They're actually forced to evacuate now, and RiSky has to peel off a few more units to deal with that. He is trying to take another hatchery in the bottom left, but it's just too much from Probe, and we have ourselves a 1-1 score.
Well, we said if there was ever a time to all in, that would be it on the map, which is maybe a bit more favored for the Protoss, but not able to find the weak point. Probe a bit too solid there and does manage to block the big German taxi, bringing those queens across the map. Didn't really matter that the Oracles weren't able to be a big impact in the fight because the Ravagerling just cannot break the Stalkers with battery overcharge in that choke point. Able to blink back for days. Fantastic reaction and control by Probe.
Yeah, really well done. And at the sort of a drop of the hat too, because you didn't see this for the longest time either, and it wasn't until this big blink back into the natural base there that the defense really started for Probe, and he just held on beautifully. The Biles weren't able to take out too much in the initial stages. That was probably the most effective one right there, preventing a warp in. But this choke is just so hard to break, especially when the Protoss is sitting there with Blink Stalkers and a couple of batteries to back them up.
Really tough to micro it as well because you are trying to break the Cybercore and Gateway open, but then the Stalkers are picking at you, so very difficult to figure out what to target, and Probe just did a great job of falling back there, not overextending onto a 4th base, and RiSky was not able to find his way in. Great hold by Probe, kind of, stabilizes in the series. We don't just see him get knocked out with a 2-0, and that's important because this is, of course, the final match for the group stages. We've already had Group B completely decided with Ranger and Teeble. Mio's first place in this group. These guys are fighting for their life, and this game is going to decide it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would be really weird to have Probe not in the playoffs because he's almost a given. You just expect that Probe is going to be there. Obviously, RiSky, as formidable as he is, you expect to see him there too, but he's sort of he has some absences where he's just not competing, so it's not like shocking if RiSky isn't actually in the playoffs because sometimes he's just perhaps got other priorities. But Probe for sure, and also coming towards his retirement, it would be nice, I'm sure, to have a really good go of it here in the Atlanta qualifiers. So yeah, we'll see if he makes it through or if RiSky's going to put a stop to it, because it's definitely still anybody's game. If RiSky had not gone for the aggressive option, maybe that would have looked different. Who knows?
Yeah, it could have been absolutely wild. To your point, I mean, I've seen so many of those RiSky tweets go out where it's like, why do I even play this stupid game? I quit, never again. And then he signs up for the next qualifiers and he's in there again. He's kicking butt and he looks like he's been practicing. And it's like, oh, okay. But there definitely were some periods where he looked like he hadn't practiced much at all. And, he's always competitive, always gets emotional, win or lose. But yeah, definitely one where he looks like he's been practicing a lot right now. He does look like he's in form. That last all in, not finding the mark, but I feel like Moondance is a bit hit or miss when you all in. Like, it looks really awesome and you kill him, or they just hold that choke point and it looks like you're barely scratching them.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I feel like Probe as a defensive player is really good as well, so all-ins maybe not always the ticket against him, but if you're 1-0 up in the series, that's the time to try it, right? Because you still got a game to fall back on. So a good choice nonetheless, even if it didn't work out. And we'll hop into game 3 here shortly and see who's going to come out on top and be the last player to advance into the playoff stage. It feels so quick. It's only like 2 nights of groups and suddenly we're already hitting the playoffs.
Yeah, it is always one which goes too quickly almost. It's like, oh man, already we're getting to that point. But, well, everything in this group is going to be finished now and decided after this single map. It is Tropical Sacrifice, and in the bottom left side of the map, the blue Protoss player, it's Probe.
And up in the top right, an absolutely monstrous Zerg. He's in the red, and his name is RiSky.
No risks in the final game of this series, though. Just hatch first, up against a Gate Scout. So Probe going back to the very safe opening once again. Not mixing it up too much in that opening phase. And I mean, Probe really likes to repeat those Oracle openings and just perfect it. Feel like he's definitely, shares some strategic habits with Showtime in terms of, doesn't just get frustrated and start cheesing, just tries to do the macro build just a little bit better each game.
Yeah, just small tweaks. His playstyle doesn't necessarily get revamped between seasons or anything. He just does what he knows best, and it's certainly served him well over the many seasons that we've watched him play. And I mean, what better way to do it than with the Oracle openings, like the Protoss bread and butter and have been for years at this point. It's like that and Glaive Adepts, the 2 builds that will sort of never truly die.
Oh yeah. I mean, RiSky got rid of the very short maps, Waterfall and Inside Out. I think he's probably confident versus Glaive Adepts, but maybe playing on the Singapore server, he's like, no, none of that.
Yeah.
Let's stick it to the Oracles. Probe will probably be pretty predictable on these maps. And Ling Speed does start up, completely pulled off gas for RiSky as the Stargate goes down for Probe. And this worker hanging out, a lot of people wonder, why does the Probe not just run away? It's basically hanging out and circling to make it very dangerous to try and do a Ling flood. The Probe hangs around a little bit. You're just kind of like, hey, if you want to flood Lings out, it's going to spot them early. It forces you to hold them back a little bit longer, and makes it very, basically you're in danger at any point of your early lings getting spotted ahead of time. Protoss just walls off at home, and for them it's an easy hold. So very good scouting by Probe. He's going to send an Adept across the map straight away, and I always think that's a good move. I do feel Protoss players are generally, at their best right now when they're alternating very aggressive Adepts and then very defensive, just super macro plays in the next game. And you can see he gets the 2 Adepts out, but is not actually going across the map. He threatened the shade, but he's holding them back for now.
Yep, gonna send this probe home as well now that it's being chased by 4 lings. The Adepts might come out to meet those, and RiSky quickly pulls those back. Very focused on drones and queens for the moment as speed finishes there, and just powering up that economy. Not interested in replacing lings at this point in time, just keeping tabs on what Probe's doing. So he will see the Oracle coming out. He's going to try and keep an eye on that probe, see if he can delay it, but he's going to have to get out of there and prepare for a little bit of Oracle harassment.
Spore Crawler going down, but only one so far. RiSky's really good at just having lots of queens early, having those in the right positions, and skimping on the spores as a result. So only the natural gets an early Spore Crawler, whereas the main and the third will both have at least 2 or potentially even 3 queens defending them. And Probe going for a nicely timed Twilight pretty much right after the Nexus goes down on that third. So it looks like a quick blink straight into the next 2 games. I mean, no, this is the exact same build from the previous game. He's changing nothing. This is just his rock solid opener.
That's exactly right. See blink come down, +1, and see where we go from there, if he can get any damage done to RiSky. He's coming in now with the Oracles, but as always, RiSky is on the ball with those queens and starting to get that creep thread rolling. So it will be tricky for any damage to get done here, but obviously Probe can keep those alive and just keep circling the map, having a look for anything that he might be able to pick off.
Big gateway explosion on the way there for Probe. His +1 didn't start up yet. He was a little shy on the minerals. There we go. Getting the chrono boosts working on that. Now, does Probe take a bit more of an aggressive stance? I feel like it's been a while since we saw the Protoss players lean into the Blinkstalker Oracle pressure with the stasis traps on the front, the Oracles turning on their lasers if the Lings try and surround. Early on, remember, Hero was just killing everyone with that. Like,
yeah.
Neeb, I remember on Cosmic would take the gold base while pushing with Blinkstalkers and Oracles towards the Zerg third. It was like just this crazy builds that Protoss players were catapulting their way to victory with. But lately it's been like, nah, we just sit there with the Stalkers and the Oracles, we take a 4th, and we make Psystorm behind it. And it does give the Zerg a lot of freedom. We saw that did not work out well for Probe in map 1. And this is the same matchup in that there's going to be a Hydra tech. Quick Baneling Nest, melee. The difference is, of course, the architecture on this map may be a little bit easier for Probe to defend those Hydra Bane attacks.
You do have some wide open spaces here where surrounds can be a bit of a problem, but if you play it smart, you can definitely find some good positions as the Protoss player and put some real pressure on those bases. For the moment, he's just trying to clear up a bit of that creep spread, and also polishing off a couple of lings here and there as they do sort of skirt around those Stalkers. And we have the gateway coming down to a forward position. You're right, Piggy might actually put some aggression here, and he starts poking away at this base.
Wow, and I mean, he's going Hydras, which means he can't build Roaches and Ravagers right now. RiSky's trying to make emergency Spine Crawlers, but they are not up just yet. Transfuses are going down. He's got to push up that choke point. Probe's got to force him to move forward with those Zerglings. He's doing a good job of it so far. +1's about to finish. He's got that gateway finishing on the front. 3 more pylons coming in right now. The Stalkers are trading very well. He was a bit supply blocked, was Probe, having lost the pylon on his 4th to a Ling run by, but the Queens are almost completely out of energy. Spines are going to move forward. If they can hold that choke point, Probe might have to take the time to take the rocks down.
6 more Stalkers being warped in behind this. The Lings kind of dancing back and forth. The Queens just exhausting their last few transfuses, but the Spines are on the front line now. We have a stasis trap behind the Stalkers to help against the Lings if need be, but Probe microing nicely so far, getting a couple of Zealots in to tank the Spines. One of them goes down.
It's a great build order. The stasis traps are there to fall back on as well if RiSky tries to chase him. Probe spending his money now, getting a lot more Stalkers as well as some Zealots in there to help in the front line. One of the Spines has fallen. The other Spine on the south side could still be very helpful, but it's not really helping that much right now. The Ling Bane trying to come forward. Bane speed has finished. It's pure Ling Bane Queen up against the Stalkers, And up against the ropes is RiSky right now. Down 12 army supply. The Oracles find the southern base. No Spore Crawler down there. And they're going to find a lot of damage on the drones. Great pressure from Probe.
RiSky still struggling to deal with this. He can't get a good position on these Stalkers. Looks like the Oracles have done enough damage down there. Nothing left to kill. They will come back to this Stalker position as more Warp-ins come in. We see Worker being snuck in here and there on the production tab for Probe, but there's 13 Hydras on the way now for RiSky. A few more Lings as well, but is it going to be enough, Pig? The trading for Probe is still going quite well.
And those Hydras don't have upgrades. They don't have augments or groove spines. So these are unupgraded Hydras. They're not very good units. On the other hand, any range damage is going to be useful when you're looking at a Protoss pushing up that choke point. Still dead even in the army supply right now are the two players. Is Probe forcing the issue a bit too much? He might be. It looks like RiSky just started taking out a lot of Stalkers. So stabilizing now a little bit is RiSky. Can he hold him back? Probe has been forced to take a fourth base. He's dropping gases behind this. He's thinking about transitioning. So Probe has already decided, I am not committing to this. I'm not going all in. I'm adding +2. I'm warping in some Zealots. I'm going to be transitioning. The Stalkers will still hang out for a while and try to keep the pressure on RiSky. So this could still build into an advantageous position. It's dead even on the Workers. RiSky can't take a fifth. He's obviously just back up against the wall. So if Probe can get some splash damage as well, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, really micro-intensive here for both players, and RiSky. That hatchery was getting a little bit low there. Credit to Probe for not getting a little too excited and targeting it down. That's when you tend to lose a lot of units, but he's still very nicely picking away at the units, keeping the pressure up, and RiSky is continuing to churn out units to deal with this. Needs more Lings as cannon fodder. Now that there's so many Hydras out, though, it's getting a little bit hard to sit at the top there and not take too much damage on those Stalkers. So you see him sort of retreating a little bit further back, but continuing to be a pest as he gets more upgrades behind this. Probes coming out 3 at a time. Oracles are back for a little visit, but a Spore is there to deal with that.
7 worker kills, still very good though. Keeping RiSky multitasking. The Stalkers are picking up a lot. Groove Spines has kicked in now. So RiSky's Hydras have the same range as the Stalkers. They've got their movement speed upgrade on the way. The thing is, look at the supply. I mean, Probe's trading is so good. We're going to have to check that unit's loss tab in a moment here, because it feels like it's just been, 14 Stalkers, 7 Zealots for 190 Zerglings, 10 Queens, 10 Banelings, 2 Hydras, and 2 Spines. Massively in Probe's favor, and he's up 20 workers behind it, adding a second Forge, adding a Templar Archives. This was a fantastic way of mixing it up. I was talking about the Gentleman's Agreement, how they both just go to the macro game, and it would be so powerful if one of them surprised each other. RiSky tried it in game 2, but could not find the mark, but Probe here in game 3, it looks like he has found the perfect answer to RiSky, just doing such good multi-prong pressure. The Stalkers incessantly blinking back and utilizing those shields on the front. And it feels like RiSky is pinned, just stuck down in supply, down in the tech. Emergency Lurkers being morphed.
Yeah, Probe's definitely hit his stride here, doing really well. RiSky sitting just barely on 61 workers, while Probe's heading towards the 90s, and he's already stopped making workers at this point. Storm halfway done, Templar coming into the mix, another Nexus as well, and he is just solidifying his position in this game, and he has not given up this territory. He's been sitting here at this choke for the longest time now.
I got to tell you, RiSky, he's probably feeling, I don't know if he was playing much in Wings of Liberty, but this is the oppressive feeling of if anyone played against like MC or Parting back in 2012, 2013, like these guys would just keep you pinned in with whether it was Immortals and Sentries or a big Blink Stalker push. You just felt like, oh my God, like I have enough to kill your army, but I can't chase you down a choke point. And you just keep poking in and poking out and shaving off units. And it's so irritating. Like, it really feels like you just don't have anything you can do here. Oh, not the best blink in. Gets a Lurker, though, so maybe not too bad. Does defend a Baneling run by at home at the same time. Knowing there's Lurkers now, Probe will be transitioning into the Robos. Might be time to rotate from this angle. Lots of Zealots going both north and south, though. Maybe time to break those rocks so we can get up there. The Lurkers are going to be devastating if he doesn't break those rocks.
Yeah, he's just hanging on to the blinks for the moment, starting to mix in the storms a little bit as well to try and shave off some extra units and get a better position. He kills the hatchery in a 12 o'clock position because RiSky's just got a bit too much to concentrate on at the moment. A rogue lurker over here will get picked off. Storm coming down to the left and the right, trying to hit the Banes, trying to hit the Hydras. The Banes do get on top of the Templar there. Couple of Zealots going to run into this other hatchery, not get too much done.
Good defense by RiSky. Amazing that he's stabilized here. He's now going for Hive Tech, of course. These are just Lair Tech Lurkers. They've only got 8 range. They don't have Adaptive Talons either, so they can't do the very quick burrow, unburrow maneuvers. He's just got to hang on and survive until he gets more tech out. Probe, with his 5 bases, probably can start thinking about a carrier transition as well. But at the same time, I think a Prism in the main might just be a winning move. If he could hit not just the top and south, top and bottom with the Zealots, but also get a Zealot Warping in the main, his army might be able to push the southern base and create just too many problems for RiSky to be able to handle.
Yeah, we've already seen a couple of instances where he slipped just a little bit in that defense, you know, lost a hatchery, missed a few injects, because this is really sort of a high pressure situation to be in, especially for so many minutes. And while you mentioned the carry transition, we do have the air weapons coming in. A lot of Immortals hitting the field here as well. So Probe is definitely equipping himself for the late game here and being able to polish this off. Still sending Zealots up towards that 12 o'clock position to try and prevent RiSky from getting that base too easily.
Thinking about pushing up the guts again like he did before. Does, of course, allow the Zerg to surround your army, but it bypasses the Lurkers that are focused on the very top and the bottom. Oracle's going to come in and reveal this creep, allowing him to get a bit more map control, but he's got to be careful. Oof, good storms there, damaging a lot of the Lings. My gosh, they go down quick to storm.
Yeah, fair bit of blood splatter there after those storms. These Hydras and Lurk are going to defend against the run by up at the 12 o'clock position. Lurker's doing a fair bit of damage there, so got to watch it with the engagement. There's actually another hatchery coming down in the bottom right that I'm not sure Probe knows about just yet. He may poke down there and find it shortly. Oh, there we go. There was a Zealot there spotting that one. So again, RiSky going to struggle to secure that base. It looks like he will get the 12 o'clock one now. But he definitely needs the money because this base isn't mining anymore. And his Zealots do get surrounded there.
Big damage on all sides. I mean, he's just shaving away at RiSky, and you can see it in the supply. There's a carrier transition underway. Finally, he gets rid of that gateway, at least. That was doing the warp-ins on the front. But look at this cannon battery setup. It's so nicely placed to make it hard for those Baneling Runbows to get in. Does take out the Artosis pylon. But no doubt he will get resurrected by that probe. The Ling Bane attack already losing most of its girth. I think there's a Baneling run by getting ready on the southern side, or maybe some Zerglings for RiSky, but he's got to pull home and defend. Okay, it is Banelings. Yeah, he's going to click those in, maybe finding some real economic damage for the first time in this game.
Yeah. He's pretty formidable Protoss ball there, although it doesn't look too big on the screen, but he's got a good economy behind this. RiSky's going to attempt another run by, this time into the forward nexus here. He's going to take out the static D instead of going to the mineral line, so if he comes in again, maybe he gets something done there, but he does actually end up getting 12 probes. Storm goes down on his Lurkers as that hatchery falls here as well, though, and RiSky struggling in the mining here. He's only got 3 hatcheries, and 2 of those are about mined out.
Finally, I think he has both Lurker upgrades, the Seismic Spines and the Adaptive Talons, I believe. So, I mean, at least RiSky's got high tech, but yeah, he's got both of those. He's only on +2, though. Not the same upgrades as he had back on Cosmic. The Lurker's attack going in for a big, desperate run by, but there is just too much. Observers, Carriers, Immortals, and High Templar. And Probe there with a 58 probe. Proxy Gate, Oracle Stalker Assault on the front, uses that to get a lead and punish the fact that RiSky completely skipped the Roach one. Remember we talked about